Most people assume quiet people are not paying attention because they are not speaking much. They are not trying to dominate the conversation. They are not constantly sharing their opinions. So people often mistake silence for absence. But silence does not always mean someone is disconnected. Sometimes silence means they are observing. And observation is something many people underestimate. Because while some people are focused on being noticed, quiet people are often focused on noticing. They notice the hesitation before someone answers. They notice when a smile appears a second too late. They notice when someone's energy changes after a certain topic is mentioned. They notice small reactions that disappear almost immediately, things most people never consciously register. And the reason is surprisingly simple. Attention works like a limited resource. The more energy you spend talking, the less energy remains for observing. The more focused you are on what you are about to say, the less focused you become on what everyone else is doing. Quiet people often experience the opposite. Because they spend less time performing, more attention becomes available for watching, for listening, for noticing patterns, for reading the atmosphere around them. And over time, this creates something interesting. They begin collecting information that other people miss, not because they are smarter, not because they possess some special ability, but because they are looking where most people are not. Most social interactions contain two conversations. The first conversation is the words being spoken. The second conversation is everything happening underneath the words. Tone, facial expressions, body language, pauses, discomfort, avoidance, tension, interest. Most people hear the first conversation. Quiet people often notice the second one. Sometimes they notice when someone is pretending to be confident. Sometimes they notice when a person is forcing enthusiasm. Sometimes they notice that two people in the room are uncomfortable with each other long before anyone says anything. And often they notice it without even trying, because observation eventually becomes automatic. The human brain is constantly collecting information. Most of it happens outside conscious awareness. Tiny changes in expression, micro-reactions, small shifts in posture, changes in eye contact. The brain records these signals whether we realize it or not. But people who spend more time observing tend to become especially sensitive to them. And that's why quiet people often seem surprisingly accurate about people. Not always, but often enough to make others wonder how they knew. The truth is, they usually did not know. They noticed, and noticing is different. Because noticing does not require certainty, it only requires attention. A person may notice that someone's smile looks strained. That does not mean they know exactly why, but it tells them something feels different, something deserves attention. And many times, those small observations eventually reveal larger truths. This is one reason quiet people are often good at reading emotional environments. They sense tension before conflict appears. They notice distance before relationships break. They notice emotional shifts before other people become aware of them. Not because they predict the future, because they are paying attention to the present. But observation has a cost. People rarely talk about this part. The more aware you become of subtle signals, the harder it becomes to ignore them. A room can feel emotionally loud even when nobody is speaking loudly. A conversation can feel exhausting even when nothing negative happens. Because awareness means processing more information, and processing more information requires energy. That's why many highly observant people eventually need solitude, not because they dislike people, because their mind has been working the entire time, collecting information, reading emotions, analyzing interactions, tracking changes. And after enough stimulation, silence becomes recovery. There is another misconception about quiet people. Many assume they are shy. Sometimes that's true, but observation and shyness are not the same thing. A person can be quiet because they are afraid, or they can be quiet because they are interested in understanding, interested in learning, interested in seeing what happens when they stop talking and start watching. And often, that's when people reveal the most about themselves. Because when people feel observed, they become careful, but when they believe nobody is paying attention, their real patterns begin to appear. Their habits, their insecurities, their motivations, their contradictions, their true personality. This is why some of the most observant people in the room are often the quietest. They are not distracted by being the center of attention. They are paying attention to everyone else. And over time, that attention becomes insight. Not perfect insight, not mind reading, just understanding. The kind of understanding that comes from watching carefully, listening completely, and noticing what others overlook. Because sometimes the person saying the least is learning the most. And sometimes silence is not emptiness. Sometimes silence is awareness. And awareness changes the way you see people forever. If you've ever felt more comfortable observing than speaking, more interested in understanding than being understood, you may have already noticed something important. Quiet people don't always know more, but they often see more. And sometimes that makes all the difference.